Really. Right. Shalom, shalom. I'd like to start off by saying, Barakatah Yahawah, Barakatah Yahawashi, Kol Haloyim La Yahawah, Bahashem Yahawashi, Bahashem, Bakat Kodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who are well. Blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect that's scattered abroad, the Akim and the Akwat that's listening in. Yahweh Ratazah, Lord willing, that the lesson is edifying. So, Brother Shawab, I'm back at you with another lesson. I'm going into the title. Many will die, Salakia. Many will perish of famine. All right. And that is also biblical prophecy. All right. And I'm going to grab a couple of videos. But before I do, I had asked the chat just to see what it would say. All right. I asked if the Strait of Hormuz being closed down causing famine globally. And it says the short answer is contributing to food shortages and high risk of famine in some regions, but it's not causing a full global famine by itself, at least not right now. All right, so at least the chat is being honest of what's going on. All right, see, it hasn't fully hit globally, but eventually it will, is what it's basically telling you. All right, if this war continues, right? So it says, here is what's actually happening based on the latest reports. It says what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz. It says recent fighting involving Iran has severely disrupted or partially closed the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important shipping routes on Earth. About 20% of the world's oil and gas flows through it. Roughly 30 to 40% of global fertilizer trade also passes through it. The second point is the key to understanding famine risk. Why this affects food, not just gas prices. The closure doesn't just hit fuel, it hits the entire food system in three main ways. You see, so before it was saying that it's hitting, it's a high risk of famine in some regions, right? Also with food shortages, but it's not a full global famine by itself, at least right now, right? But then it says right here, it says the closure doesn't just hit fuel, it hits the entire food system in three main ways, all right? So it doesn't just hit, all right, regions of food, all right? It hits the entire food system, period, okay? So that's a global thing right there, all right? It says, number one, fertilizer shortages, all right? And based on, you know, what goes through that passage is basically ureus, the fertilizer ureus, right? And it says fertilizer shortages. Fertilizer is essential for modern farming. A large portion of it is now stuck or delayed. All right, and some will say, you know, why do we not have our own fertilizer here in America? Because you have to understand that most of the fertilizer that comes, all right, from, you know, from over there, that's basically served to 30 to 40% of the world, it's from Monsanto, all right, coming from China. And China is known to give you what? Is known to give you what do you call it? They're known to give you the what's the word? GMO seeding, okay? Because none of the seeds that we have are natural anymore. The only places you're gonna really find natural type of food will be seeds will be basically if you go to like South America, you know, where these things grow wild, all right? You have to go where, you know, hot places, right? Towards the equator. All right. These places grow naturally with their foods. Okay. But remember, you've had Bill Gates has been pretty much at least in America, you know, taking all the farms, all right, and basically, you know, putting it under his possession, all right, to be able to give you GMO, more GMO, 3D printed meat, okay. Not only that, you see a lot of these fires, these wildfires that are being, you know, pushed throughout the world, all right, are made to basically destroy, all right, your farms, okay. Anything that has anything natural growing in it, okay. You got a lot of this. Nebraska right now is getting smacked with a bunch of fires, all right. But that's just not that. It's just not about Nebraska. I'm just talking about wildfires in general, okay. A lot of these wildfires are government made to destroy crops and destroy, you know, places that have open fields like that, where, you know, you can basically grow your own type of you know, fruits and vegetables, all right. And then on top of that, Esau going to everybody's backyard and basically taking their natural resources and calling it his own, all right. So going back, all right, like I said, most of the fertilizer, you know, comes from Monsanto, which is out there in China, all right. And that's why we don't have our own seeds here in America, okay. If anything, the elites will be the ones that own the actual natural seeds, all right, and growing their own shit, all right, to, you know, to get the best out of it for themselves, all right, rather than, you know, the rest of the world being able to have, you know, natural fruits and vegetables. They rather give you the GMO, you know, what's destroying and killing us, all right, on another level, right? So it says fertilizer is essential for modern farming. A large portion of it is now stuck or delayed. Prices have already jumped sharply. If farmers can't get fertilizer, crop yields can drop dramatically, even up to 50% in some cases. All right, and that's biblical prophecy. All right, going to Second Ezra, the 15th chapter. All right, matter of fact, let me grab. I've got my Bible on me. Yeah, I don't have it on me. It's in my car. All right, but I didn't want to leave the chat because I know the moment I leave this chat is gonna just knock out what I got. I'll go to that in a second. Second Ezra 15. Right. So it says higher energy and higher energy. Number 2, higher energy and transport costs. It says farming, shipping, and food processing all depend on fuel. When oil prices spike, food becomes more expensive globally. Right. It says disrupted, and if everything is to a halt, then food becomes scarce, right? So it says disrupted food trade routes. It says major staples, wheat, rice, animal feed, move through that region. Gulf countries especially rely on imports, with 70% of their food coming through Hormuz. Okay, so 70%, all right, of the Gulf countries, all right, 70% of their food comes through the Hormuz, you see? So this is why it affects pretty much globally, right? It says what we're seeing right now, March 2026. All right, and then let me see what it got. It got a bunch of different things here. Let me see which one I pick out. You have the Washington Post. It says as Iran war drags on, food and medicine for millions. And I will have to go into that. Hold on real quick before I do. It says Barclays sees 13 to 14 million BPD oil supply loss from prolonged Hormuz, right? And then you got Tehran's toll booth, a visual guide to how a trickle of ships still, and I can't read the rest of it because these are 3 different articles I have to go into. Let me see if I go into them in a second after I read, right? So it says aid shipments, food and medicine are already getting stuck. Okay, it says oil supply disruptions are massive, pushing prices higher. And then it says shipping traffic has collapsed with vessels avoiding the area. Is this causing famine globally? not globally right now, but it is rising the risk significantly. Okay. What's true, some vulnerable regions, Africa, Middle East, parts of Asia, are at real risk of famine. Okay. And those are big places. Asia is a big place. All right. Africa is a big continent. Okay. So with them two alone, those are two big continents. All right. That if they get smacked with that famine, many are going to perish. All right. And a lot of them, all right, most of them are going to die here in America. All right. So it says aid delays and rising prices are already worsening hunger. Experts warn millions could be affected if this continues. Millions, right? What's not true yet? The entire world is not in famine. Food is still available in most developed countries like the US, though prices may rise. The key factor, time. The situation becomes much more serious the longer it lasts. Short disruption weeks, higher prices, supply stress. Medium months, food shortages in poorer regions. Long 1 year plus, potential global food crisis or widespread famine. Experts are already calling a long closure catastrophic for global food production. All right. And this is going to be quick and short. Why? Because the Lord is shortening up the days for the elect's sake. All right. So the days are getting shorter. All right. The Lord is moving fast. If you can see the pattern, all right, things are happening real fast and they get faster and faster every day. Okay. And now we got the Passover that's coming in. What's this? 28, 3 days from now. Okay. And right after that, all right, best believe that Yahweh Bashem Yahushua is going to turn it up here in America and globally also. Okay. So prepare for things to go even quicker. Again, because the Lord is shortening up the days for the elect's sake. All right. Then it says, bottom line, the Strait of Hormuz situation is not causing a worldwide famine right now, but is a major trigger that could lead to one if it continues. All right. And this war is not going to, it's not going to stop or slow down anytime soon. It's less like flipping a switch and more like cutting off critical arteries slowly. The effects build over time, especially through fertilizer and energy disruptions. All right. And right now we're going through a what? Fertilizer, energy crisis, both of them, okay, at the same time, right? It says, if you want, I could break down how this could affect food prices, availability. Now I want to go into one of those articles. All right, let's go to this one. It says, as Iran, oh shit, that should kick me right out. Boo boo. Kick me right out. Let's see if it takes me there. Okay, there you go. The YAHAWAH'S. Right? It says, as Iran war drags on, food and medicine for millions is stuck in limbo. Okay? It says the war. Oh, damn, it won't let me go in there. All right. It says the war has disrupted shipping routes, raised fuel and insurance prices, closed airports, and left aid groups with tons of essential supplies stuck in warehouses. Okay. And this is happening internationally right now. All right. In the Middle East. All right. How much more America soon to feel the wrath of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, right? Yeah, it's not letting me go no farther than that. All right. Then it says Dubai. It says the world food. Kicking me out. It's making me pay to go on. That's wild. Hold on. Let's see if I could screenshot it. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to screenshot it. All right. Screenshot one part. Damn, yo. The fact that Esau got this shit going like this is wild. Can never do something without it just going smoothly, right? You got Satan always messing something up. Esau always messing something up. Man, all right. Let me see what I got out of it because I pretty much read what was in the chat. Let me see what I screenshotted. So out of the screenshot, all I got was, hold on. It says Dubai, right? It says the World Food Program says 10,000 tons of food meant for hundreds of thousands of children in Afghanistan has yet to arrive. The World Health Organization has been held up in sending a $6 million shipment of medicine to Gaza and Save the Children warns that 90 primary health care facilities in Sudan could be left without essential supplies. Okay, so this ain't just affecting oil, gas, food. This is also affecting medical. Okay, because remember, all right, medical products also get shipped through these ships. Right. Not only that, okay, there's medicine that's made worldwide, okay, and shipped to different regions, okay, based on whoever has connection with, whatever country they have connections with. All right. So not only is it gas, oil, food, but it's also, medical supplies. Imagine how many are gonna pretty much perish off of that. Okay, people not getting the cures that they need, which, when it comes to this pharmakia, there's never any cures in pharmakia. That's just nothing but a bunch of witchcraft and sorceries. Okay, they cure one thing to basically hurt you in another part, right? That's how they keep the system going, keep you in the loop, keep making money off of you. Okay, but again, this is also causing medical warfare. Okay, which that's been going on for years also. Okay. And now with all this that's going on with, they want to cut off lights, all right, cut off the power. Okay. That's why millions are going to end up perishing from hospitals too. Okay. If this happens, worldwide, because I just did a video like 2-3 days ago based on Cuba. All right. Cuba itself, okay, is hurting right now. A lot of people are dying in the hospitals because there's no power. All right, lights have been cut off, so people that are on respiratory systems, okay, they'll pretty much perish. Freezers that have all types of medication preserved is gonna pretty much spoil and be no good. So people are dying out there, man. All right, and as a matter of fact, I just read an article about an hour ago. Russia is now, is now coming to the aid. All right, to Cuba, all right, sending over, I think it was 700 barrels, 700 barrels or 700 something barrels of oil, okay, to try to help them out, regardless of what America's basically talking about, okay. And we also just heard yesterday, I did a video on that yesterday, that Russia is now helping Iran in the war. So they have joined Iran in the war. Okay, because Israel did, they dropped some missiles on something that was Russian owned. Forgot exactly what it was. I think it was a place with artillery. Okay, because they found out that Russia has been supporting Iran with military artillery for a while now, which that was no secret, man. We've been knew that. Okay, how you think they became strong? All right, so. With that going on, all right, let's see what happens with Cuba. All right, but now let's get into, that's all I was able to screenshot. I wouldn't let me screenshot no more than that. All right, well, now let me go back into Instagram. All right, Australia right now is going through a famine, I believe it was. I think it was Australia. Let me pull up the video. All right, and how do we know that we're also going to get a famine? This is something that's been coming up on my algorithm heavy right now. All right. Before I grab what's going on in Australia. All right. Give me 1 second. Um, a lot of these emergency, you see what you see right here? This is a 30-day, okay? And I had another picture of another one. I don't know where the hell it went. It looks like I don't have it there. It might be in my screenshots. All right, but this one says a 30-day emergency food supply. All right, and they're pushing them all over Amazon. Heavy, okay? Basically, it says 30-day emergency food supply available exclusively on Amazon. Great to have in hand in case of emergency. Up to 25 years shelf life. Over 3,500 five-star reviews, right? And, for years, I've been telling people if you want to be able to preserve certain things, all right, what you do is you go to Amazon and you get yourself Mylar bags. They're called Mylar bags. All right. And you get yourself 5-gallon buckets. All right. You can buy like 3 at a time, 4 at a time. All right. And what you do is you grab yourself 20-pound bags of rice, as many as you can basically get your hands on. Now, we're not going to be no doomsday preppers. All right. Because we're going to have faith in YAHAWAH'S, but there's nothing wrong with being smart and preparing yourself for the times that we're in. All right. Because at one point, it's going to be hard to get into these stores when prices go up. People are going to start looting these stores. All right. People are going to start, acting a fool. Okay. So to avoid that, all right, there's nothing wrong with you preparing yourself for what's to come. So you get yourself Mylar bags, right? You get yourself 5-pound buckets. All right. And what you do is you grab rice and you put them in the Mylar bags, and basically you seal it with like an iron, and then you put it inside the 5-gallon barrels. All right. And you can either, store them somewhere. It would be smart if you own somewhere, your house, or somewhere where nobody really gonna be at. You can go bury it somewhere in the cut, basically. All right. Because in these times, you're going to have, as the scripture saying, 2 Ezra, the 15th chapter, a neighbor shall have no a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, right? Because the lack of bread. All right. So people are going to come into your homes trying to spoil your homes, take whatever you have. All right. So if you're smart enough, you hide it somewhere where nobody really knows. You bury it. Okay. And you know that it's there if you need it. Okay. And you don't have to go crazy, like I said, because we're going to put our trust in YAHAWAH'S. Okay. But you grab these Mylar bags, you fill them up with rice, you seal them shut with iron. All right. And then you can also grab dry beans, not beans that come in a can. It's also good to have canned foods, but you can get dry beans, all right, that come in a bag. And you do the same thing. You put them in Mylar bags, and you also pretty much, you could stash that also. All right. And that's just something to have when times are rough. Okay. And you can make a lot with rice, it expands. So, a little bit, 2 cups will make you, about 4 or 5 plates. Okay. If you know how to ration it the right way. Right. And, it's also good to have distillers to clean water, because water is going to start becoming poisoned also. All right. You got these devils putting chemicals in the waters. So it's good to have those distillers, which it pretty much it gives you RO water. All right. Clean water, zero, nothing in it, basically. Takes out all the lead, all the contaminants. Okay. So that's also good for you to have. All right. Because these only last 30 days. All right. And they are expensive and they go pretty quick. All right. And who the hell knows what Esau does with these damn, these food supplies. Right. And now there's another one. Let me see if it's in my real quick. It might be in here. They were talking about a 3-month one they were advertising. Okay. And why would they be doing that? Because they know the times that we're in. They know we are coming into a famine. All right. Maybe our people don't know what the hell's going on, or the average person, all right, here in America. All right. But these top banking families know exactly. These top-notch corporations, all right, people that have money, okay, they know exactly what's going on. All right. Let me see. Yeah, it doesn't look like I thought I screenshot it. It probably didn't. All right, but it's big, like I said, it's a 3-month supply that they're talking about also, along with a 30-day supply. All right, and 3-month supply is heavy. Okay, because that's how it's basically telling you through the spirit as a warning that, hey man, we might be months without actual, power, without food. Okay, and you're gonna have to, find your ways to keep yourself stable, and ultimately it's gonna be what YAHAWAH'S, because the Lord said, what? My servants shall eat and they shall be hungry, my servants shall drink and they shall be thirsty. All right, so we really don't have nothing to worry about at the end of the day. Okay, and like I've always said, when it comes into time of famine, all right, that's going to be us going into fasting, basically. All right, and that's a powerful thing. It draws you closer to YAHAWAH'S. All right, the Lord going to be doing his miracles in that time also. All right, so we definitely going to be praising YAHAWAH'S heavy in those times, right? So let's grab the video that I had. I believe it was Australia. Find it real quick.
Trying to scare you, but there's a lot going on right now.
Yeah, this is Australia.
This right here. Look, I'm not trying to scare you, but there's a lot going on right now that is not making it to the news. This right here is in Australia.
So Sienna and I have just come to Coles to literally get popcorn, and look, there's nothing.
I gotta open this.
Who's here in Darwin? What the?
Look, I'm not trying to scare you, but there's a lot going on right now that is not making it to the news. This right here is in Australia.
So Sienna and I have just come to Coles to literally get popcorn, and look, there's nothing. Look at the shelves here in Darwin. What the?
Right now, everybody's focused in on this war that's happening with Iran and how they blocked the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil and gas is supposed to be flowing through, but it's not at the moment. This is causing some really big problems. People in India are fighting over gas. Australia's energy minister has said that they have about 38 days of gas and 30 days of diesel left in their reserves. The Philippines declared a state of energy emergency, and the International Energy Agency is saying this is the worst energy crisis in modern history. But that's not the full story. What people haven't been talking about is the fact that 30% of the world's seaborne fertilizer trade also passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Prices for that primary fertilizer called urea is already up 30%, and you better believe that's going to show up in your food prices. And unlike with oil, there's no international reserves of fertilizer that can just be released to relieve some of the pressure. Right now, the United Nations World Food Program is saying that around 45 million additional people could be pushed into acute hunger due to rising food and fuel costs and supply chain disruptions. And for all my Westerners who think that this isn't going to affect you, listen up. All of this is happening right at the beginning of the planting season in the Northern Hemisphere. Farmers are having to make tough decisions about what exactly they're going to do. Are they going to buy fertilizer or just sit this season out? How much fertilizer are they going to buy? What crops are they going to plant? And for some, this might completely put them out of business, right as the farming industry in the United States continues to consolidate into fewer and fewer hands. Another thing that's finally starting to make it to the news is that there's a wildfire in Nebraska that's already burned over 800,000 acres of land. And this has devastated grazing land for an estimated 40,000 plus cows, which means ranchers are also going to be under a lot of pressure to figure out how they're going to feed these cows. Jeffrey Snyder, the founder.
Another one that they just burned, I seen that today. Also, they burned, it was a warehouse full of chickens, eggs. Okay, that's also being burned. Lord willing, I find that again and do a video on that. All right, but listen, man, they're cutting off these food supplies worldwide. They're cutting off the food supply here in America. Okay, so on top of the food supply, the food chain, right, the Strait of Hormuz being put to a halt, all right, and basically causing a famine over here, you got also Nebraska farms being burnt down. You got warehouses with chickens and eggs being burnt down here in America at the same time that there's a halt on the Strait of Hormuz. So make it make sense, man. It can only lead to one thing here in America is famine, all right? And global famine is also coming with it, all right? Because the Lord is going to put, all right, it's going to hit these other nations also, man. It ain't just America that's just going to get hit. All right, America's going to get hit the hardest, all right? Our people going to get hit the hardest, right? But the Lord is also going to hit these other nations, okay? Because the Lord is punishing these nations at the same time also, okay? It's just that the Lord's going to start off with our people, right? He should start in the house of Israel first, okay? But then he going to go to these other nations also, so they're going to feel the pain too. They're going to feel the Lord's wrath.
Eurodollar University and a popular analyst here on Twitter pointed out that we also need to think about the fact that the biggest concern doesn't have to show up in food and gas prices. History tells us that this spike in the price of oil might actually come at the cost of your job. We know that the economy in the U.S. already isn't in the best spot, so any extra pressure, businesses might just start cutting workers as they're also raising prices. Look, I don't want you to be scared. I just want you to be prepared. The major signal for me is whether or not the Strait of Hormuz opens back up and these ships start flowing in this region again. Not what these world leaders are talking about. All they're doing is yapping, trying to manage reputation and also manipulating financial markets so they can make money. Once the Strait of Hormuz opens back up, all of this is going to be mitigated. But until then, like I said, don't be scared, be prepared. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe to stay up to date as the situation develops.
And listen, man, it ain't going to open. It ain't going to open back up. It ain't going to open back up because this is the time of the Lord's judgment. All right. The Lord prophesied onto us, right? Has told us to prophesy onto the world, right? That famine is going to come. And that's what's going to happen, right? The Lord said that all these things must come to pass. Okay. The spirit of prophecy is working, all right, as we speak right now. All right. Let me see what else. I thought I had one more in here of famine. This one.
We're now learning that the U.S. has carried out strikes in Iraq, potentially.
No, that's not it.
Listen up. Y'all aren't going to believe this. So we know that ICE has begun.
No, that's not that one. Slovakia.
Israel is proved
No, that's not that one.
on the ground in Iraq. I'm not aware of this, but starting.
No, hold on. I think it might be one more place I might have it. If I don't have it in there, then I guess they taking off my shit too. It'd be like that. Esau has the power to start taking. I did a video on that a couple years back. Esau was going into my phone and erasing shit that I had stored, saved up, and they could do that. They could tap into your phone like that. Especially if you connect it to Instagram, Facebook, all right? Because the things that you save on Facebook, Instagram, they have, you know, they're able to go into that if they want to. Yeah, I don't got it. That's the main one I wanted to bring in those two videos based on the 30-day food supply, and you had the 3-month food supply, all right? And then that video that I just showed you, all right? So again, many's going to perish from famine, right? Let's grab that since I was bringing that out before. 2nd Ezra 15, I wanted to bring out, all right, when they were talking about the farmers and the farming system, all right? This is 2nd Ezra 15, and let's take it from 13. Let's take it from 12. It says, Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that Yahweh shall bring upon it, okay? And we are spiritually Sodom and Egypt, right? So the things that happen in the time of Egypt, all right, those same plagues are going to be brought back in these times, okay? Because we are spiritually Egypt, all right? And one of the things that were brought in the time of Egypt was famine, okay? You had crops being killed by locusts, okay? You had the animals, all right, were being taken away. All right, that's all part of food supply, food chain, right? And it says that, and they that till the ground shall mourn, for their seed shall fail through the blasting and hail, and with fearful constellation, and with a fearful constellation. All right, so those that till the ground are what? The farmers. The farmers are having trouble, all right, telling you that this year is going to be crazy because we had a wicked ass winter. We had a crazy winter, a cold winter. So usually when you have a cold winter, you have a very, very dry spring coming into the summer. Okay, so crops are not going to grow, all right, the way they normally do because it's probably going to be a drought. Okay, and the weather right now is being manipulated, okay, through HARP, all right, through these chemtrails that these devils use. All right, so that's pretty much going to hurt, all right, the farming system. All right, let's grab this. This is Jeremiah 50. This is this is I think I passed right by it. 16, 50 and 16. And it says, cut off the sower from Babylon and him that handleth the sickle in the time of harvest. All right. So the Lord said, cut off the sower from Babylon and him that handleth the sickle in the time of harvest. All right. And what did they use a sickle for? All right. In the time of harvest is to cut down, basically these plants. Okay. In the time of harvest, that's how when it's ripe and it's ready, they bring it, they take it. All right. And they cut it down and they, basically prepare it to be sold to these stores. All right. So the Lord said, cut off the sower from Babylon, meaning that it ain't going to be working in that time. You see, he going to have trouble in that time. It says, for fear of the oppressing sword, they shall turn everyone to his people and they shall flee everyone to his own land. Okay. So again, going into these devils being able to control and manipulate weather. All right. With weather modification. All right. It's going to be tough times here. Just trying to cultivate basically, vegetables, fruits. All right. And at the same time, it's already GMO. All right. So it being GMO, the seeds are not coming in. All right. That just makes it even greater for us to get our hands on what we need to nourish our bodies. All right. Let's grab, go back to 2nd Ezra's 15. Something I wanted to bring out real quick that just reminded me of famine, showing you that these other nations are going to go through it, right? Because when you go into 47, it talks about Asia, right? And let's take it from 46 real quick. It says, and thou, Asia, that art partaker of the hope of Babylon and art the glory of her person, woe be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her and hast decked thy daughters in whoredom, that they might please and glory in thy lovers, which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee. All right. So you had America that's always wanted to be just like America. Okay. And by me saying that, if you ever want to know what's going to happen in the future, okay, all you have to do is look at what's going on out there in China, because China follows pretty much whatever America does. And they're more advanced. All right. That's why they get hit pretty much internationally first with what's going on around the world. All right. Around the globe. And then eventually that's going to come to America. All right. So with what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz is affecting people globally. And China's one of them that was being affected, even though they're still allowed to go through the Strait of Hormuz. All right, because Iran is giving them passage. All right, the Lord is still going to bring a certain type of judgment upon them. Right, when you jump down to 57. All right, this is still concerning. As a matter of fact, I'll go to 49. Might as well take it from 48. It says, thou hast followed her that is hated in all her works and inventions. Therefore saith the Lord Yahweh, I will send plagues upon thee. Why? Because they want to be just like America. They actually think that they're next in line. You see, they think that they're next to rule. It says, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence to waste thy houses with destruction and death. You see, so this is coming to Asia also. This is coming to China. All right. Now, when you jump down to 57, okay, it says, thy children shall die of hunger, and thou shalt fall through the sword. Thy city shall be broken down, and all thine shall perish with the sword in the field. They that be in the mountains shall die of hunger, and eat their own flesh, and drink their own blood, for the very hunger of bread and thirst of water. You see, so they're going to have to go through that same exact thing that America's going to go through. All right, showing you that these other nations, some of these other nations are going to be affected with the same exact type of plague. All right, that Babylon the Great is going to go through. All right. So now let's go to 2nd Ezra 16 and verse 17. It says, woe was me, who would deliver me in those days? The beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the power shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? All right. So the Lord said it's the beginning of sorrows, great mournings, famine, and great death. You see, it says, behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment, but for all these things they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. Right. So the famine and the plague is coming upon these places, right? And these people still don't turn from their wickedness, especially our people. They see these things being brewed up, right? And they still continue to live in their wickedness, all right? And not turn to righteousness. It says, behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon the earth that they shall think themselves to be in good case, all right? And just not too long ago, before this Strait of Hormuz was closed, all right, you had basically people that were able to, still go to the stores, with their little SNAP benefits, be able to still go grab food, things that they needed, okay? Get them at a decent price, okay? So victuals was so good, cheap upon the earth that they thought that themselves were in good case. They thought things were going to go back to normal, all right? And victuals also, not only is it food, it's also necessities that we need in our life, okay? So these people are still able to get their hands on things we need. And they think themselves to be in good case, but the whole entire time, evils was growing, man, right? Famine was growing, great confusion was growing, which is leading to the point that we're in now, okay? With this, this global collapse that's happening right in front of our eyes. You see, they didn't think the latter end of it, man. They just thought themselves to be in good case, right? So it says, for many of them that dwell upon the earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. You see, so many are going to perish of famine, all right, and the ones that pretty much don't die of famine, all right, the sword is going to pretty much destroy them, all right, basically going into war, Jacob's trouble, you getting drafted to the war, right? And this is Bible prophecy, okay? This is Revelation 6 and 6, right? It says, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil or the wine, right? The oil and the wine going into this truth, all right? Going into the elect, right? It says, a measure of wheat for a penny and 3 measures of barley for a penny. That goes into basically goes into hyperinflation, you see, because things are going to go up. You're going to have to learn how to ration your food. People are going to have to learn how to barter in that day, all right, when it comes to their food, all right, which when you go into Genesis, the 47th chapter, it spoke about how people were bartering for their food when the famine came upon Egypt in that time, all right, which I'll get that in a second. And it says, and when he had opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th beast say, come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him, and power was given unto them over the 4th part of the earth to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beast of the earth, you see. And this goes into Esau, Edom, okay? These top banking families, these elites that are pulling the strings behind closed doors, they're the ones that are putting this into full effect, okay? They are the ones that have been funding this war, all right? They are the ones that pretty much, told America to join and back up Israel, you see? As the scriptures say, the least of the flock shall draw them out. So they drew them into the war, all right? And look what it caused, cause and effect. They came into the war. These other nations warned them not to join the war, all right? They didn't listen, so now here comes the effect. Everybody around the world globally is suffering for it, right? Now, going into, it's like Genesis 47. All right, this is Genesis 47. And before I grab that, Let me grab this. This is also Isaiah 19. And it's taken from 3. It says, in the spirit of Egypt, because we are spiritually Egypt, right? And the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof. And I will destroy the counsel thereof, and they shall seek to the idols and to the charmers and to them that have familiar spirits and to the wizards, right? And the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel Lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, save the Lord YAHAWAH'S hosts, right? So that cruel Lord is Donald Trump, okay? The Lord has given us Donald Trump, and look what he's doing, all right, to America, pretty much be making everything fail here in Egypt, okay? Has caused confusion with his plans, all right? Now, when you drop down, all right, where's that at? Is that in the NLT? Where it says desire shall fail, all right, because desire is failing here in America, okay? And there's a reason why desire is failing, because you got the whole system of America is pretty much collapsing, all right? And when these things collapse, that's exactly what happens. Desire fails, okay, in the land, right? Where's that at? Is that in this chapter? Or is that? So I can give me 1 second. I think I'm thinking of another precept. All right, but that's all right. I made the point that the spirit of Egypt is failing. All right, so now let me grab Genesis 47, and let's take it from let's take it from 13. It says the leadership in famine, Joseph's leadership in famine. All right, and this is what's going to happen here in America. All right, the only thing is that there ain't going to be no leadership in the famine. All right, there's not going to be anything to get us out of this famine. That one's going to stay for good. Right, and it says, and there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by the reason of famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in the presence, for the money faileth. All right. And that's what's going to happen here. The money is going to fail here in America. All right. And it's going to send us into a barter system. Okay. It's going to send us into, you know, complete famine. Okay. It says, and Joseph said, give your cattle and I will give you for your cattle if money fail. And they brought their cattle onto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in the exchange for horses and for the flocks and for the cattle of the herds and for the asses. And he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. All right. So it only lasted for a year, that barter system. Okay. Showing you that when all things fail here in America, right, the dollar is going to collapse. Gold and silver is going to go up. Precious metals. All right. Bartering is going to happen at that time, but it's only going to be a temporary thing, because eventually that's going to run out and fail also. Right. It says when that year ended, they came unto him the second year and said unto him, we will not hide it from my Lord, how that our money is spent. My Lord also has our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore shall we die for thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. Okay. So you see how the system of bartering, all right, they was trying to keep themselves alive. Okay, showing you, all right, as the scriptures say, everything written aforetime is written for your learning. All right, the thing that was is the thing that shall be, and there's no new thing under the sun. So these things are going to happen here in America also, and eventually fail. Okay, because the Lord, all right, said that many shall perish from famine. Okay, let me grab this. This is oh, that's what I was thinking about. Ecclesiastes, the 12th chapter, right? Going into this is also going to cause famine. Also, Ecclesiastes 12:4 says, and the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. Okay, so the doors are going to be shut in the streets, right? The places that were sown shall suddenly appear unsown. All right, there's going to be no more foods in the shelves. All right, empty shelves. Okay, so on top of that, you know, the employment here in America is also, all right, at its worst. So people ain't finding jobs. You got AI that's taking over everything. You got robots that's taking over everything. All right, people are getting, you know, fired from their jobs because these bosses ain't telling you that they're hurting in their companies. Okay, going pertaining to what's going on, you know, globally right now. All right, so people not gonna have, you know, any jobs, so the grind is gonna be low, and that's also gonna bring, you know, famine upon the people. All right, nobody got jobs, nobody got money to make. People can't do what they want to do. These little small businesses on the side, they're gonna be taken away. All right, they're basically taking away that middle class. Okay, you either gonna be rich or poor. Most people gonna be poor, right? It says also, when they shall be afraid of that which is high, the fears shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire shall fail. You see, desire is going to fail here, man. Why? Because there's nothing left to look forward to. There's no future. There's no hope in this place no more. You see, so the desire is going to fail here in America. It says, because man goeth long, Salaki, because man go to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets. Right? So, you know, the point is that, you know, everything here in America is collapsing. So when the society collapses, right, pretty much the people collapse with it. Right? That's what's going to have us going into a frenzy, you know, sedition among the men, people fighting against each other. All right. Because of the lack of bread. All right. Because everybody's in a desperation state of mind. You see, everybody's going to be against each other. It's going to be survival of the fittest out here. You see, but the Lord is going to preserve us from those times. He's going to preserve us from those moments. Okay, because we're going to be locked in with the Heavenly Father. Okay. The Lord said that I am your shepherd, right? You shall not want. So you should not want any of these things, man. You should not look forward to any of these things other than the destruction of this place. Okay. Keeping yourself close and constantly drawing nigh to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua, so you are favored in those last days, man. So you're favored, and, you know, in the time of mercy, right? Because it's about to get spooky out here, man. You're going to see, you know, people eating their children, people eating their pets, you know, people, man, once people start starving, and then once there's no water, all right, which is the worst, because when you're dehydrated, that's when, you know, you start to hallucinate. You know, you could go months without food, man. You can't go weeks without water, days at that. You know, water is the main source of our body. So once there's no water, people going to starve. I mean, people going to dehydrate. All right. And they're going to go into a hallucinated state of mind. All right. They're going to be doing some bugged out shit. You know, people out here, just, a pile of sand going to look like some water to them. You're going to see somebody drinking some sand thinking that shit is water. Okay. drinking their bodily fluids, which I actually think that you could survive if you drink your piss. But how the hell you gonna piss if you ain't got nothing to drink? You know? But yeah, you're gonna see people doing some weirdo shit. Okay. You might see I ain't even gonna say that shit just sound nasty, you know, but you might see these women on their menstrual and shit doing some weirdo shit. Okay. Because the people's mentalities is gonna have so many demons on them in that day. All right. And because the Lord, right, the scriptures say, fear not him that could kill the body, but fear him that could kill the body and the soul. All right. The Lord gonna have these people bugged out doing some things is like things you ain't never seen, you know, because of the demons that they're on. All right. Because the Lord pretty much wants to, you know, torture these people because that's the wrath that the Lord is bringing upon them. All right. For the people that are Israelites, you chose not to fear the Lord. All right. So the Lord gonna make you fear in that day, and he gonna, you know, he gonna make you suffer in a harsh manner. All right. So you can, you know, remember that that's your power, that's your power that you chose to be disobedient to, you see. So he gonna make you feel it. All right. And to these nations that had their hands in the cookie jar when it came to our captivity, you know, had their hands in also helping to destroy us. All right. The Lord's gonna make them also, all right, feel the pain and the wrath to show them that there's only one power, that none of their gods exist, and none of their gods are real gods. You see, as the scriptures say, shall there be evil in the city and the Lord has not done it, you know. So the Lord's got to put you through a lot of pain in these last days, especially our people, right? They shall learn by death and pain, as the scriptures say. Right. Let's grab this is Lamentations. I'll pretty much close it out. Lamentations 4:11 10 and it 9, Slakia. And it reads, they that be slain with the sword are better than they that be slain with hunger, for these pine away stricken for the want of the fruits of the field. The hands of the pitiful women have sodden their own children. They were their meat in the destruction of the daughter of my people. You see? So you're going to have, you know, men, women secretly eating their children. Okay. Again, eating their pets. You know, pretty much getting their hands on anything they could pretty much chew. All right. There's going to be a lot of abominated ass animals that they're going to be eating, tapping into. Just like how you see Moab in a lot of these videos. Moab be eating some abominated ass foods, man. Spiders and rats and weirdo shit, man. Frogs. Okay. You're going to see people trying to eat things like that, man. Things that they have never had because they're going to be starving, man. Okay, to the point where they're going to bring cannibalism upon themselves. You know, scriptures say that they shall snatch on the right hand and snatch on the left and not be satisfied. They're going to be chewing on themselves. You know, imagine that. You seeing a person in the corner in a fucking alleyway, all right, just eating himself, you know, ripping his own skin off. Okay. You're going to see people that were enemies join together and become friends, you know. Trying to chase you down because you look good. You look like a whole meal, a true snack to them. You know, like these niggas say in the world, these women look like snacks. You're going to really look like snacks in that day. You see, when you hallucinating and you ain't got no damn food and water in your body. All right. So these are the times that we are entering into, man, and they're creeping up behind us real fast. All right. This ain't something that's happening little by little, slow. Nah, man, the Lord is he's shortening the days for the elect's sake. So these things are coming upon us fast, quickly. Okay. And the Lord's coming as a thief in the night, and these things are going to happen suddenly. When these things, anything that happens suddenly, right, happens quick. You see? So the signs are being given, the warnings are being given. All right. And the effect, the cause is here. The effect is going to come right behind it quickly. So it's only a matter of time. This is why you see the brothers going harder and harder with the videos, you know. The time has come where nobody's shutting up that's part of this truth, right? They have this word and they're prophesying. They're just letting it all out, okay? Because we're drawing close to that time. and we don't have much time left. All right, so I'm gonna leave it there through the spirit, Lord willing, that you were edified. All right, it's right around the corner, this famine. Okay, so with that being said, Barakatah Yahawah, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Kor Haloyan La Yahawah, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Bachat Kodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect that scattered abroad. The Akim and the Aquat that was listening in. Yahweh Ratazah, Lord willing, that the lesson was edifying. To the next one, Shalom. Keep fighting the good fight of faith. Doing as good soldiers of Yahweh Shai. Shalom.